Welcome to Candlelight Conversations with Angels. I'm Debbie Pokornik, and I'm here with my friend Angelia LaRue. And together we've decided that we really want to get information out there for people that are wanting to awaken, that are feeling this nudge to change things in their life and to understand more of the spiritual side, so to speak. And so together we thought, you know what, we're going to try doing videos in front of the fire with a cup of tea close by and try to make it a very relaxed thing, a rather short thing, because we recognize that people are so busy and we'd rather you get to watch several of the episodes than keep you here for 2 hours while we do one really in-depth thing. And so we decided that we're going to do this. Now, we also recognize that some of you probably need to know a little bit about us before we start. We don't want to take a bunch of time on bios or anything. So you can go to crystalarrays.com. The link will be right below the video. And there you will find a page that says Candlelight Conversations with Angels. And on that page, you will be able to find all that information about us. However, we will share just something really quick today and at each show, just so that if you don't know us at all, it can help put your mind at ease and make you comfortable with what we are sharing. So my name is Debbie Pokornik. As I mentioned, I have a podcast that's called The Vibrant Powerful Mom Show, and it plays on Transformation Talk Radio, so it goes out all around the world. And it started it actually started 2016, but with Transformation Talk Radio 2017. And that show has helped me to awaken quite a bit in the last few years. But really, my awakening started over 30 years ago. And it was a rather slow process of finding information, attracting people into my life, that sort of thing, that really got me where I am today. And then 2010, things accelerated because I actually did have an accident. And that, was a little bit more like a cosmic 2x4. However, my friend Angie here, I often refer to her as Angel, which is part of our conversation with angels. She had a spontaneous conscious awakening where, like, 1 minute everything was normal, she's on the phone talking to one of her clients, and the next minute her whole world just kind of and since then she really has been interning with spirit. I mean, she has gone through really incredible training. She's what's called a psychic surgeon, even though that's not the technical term, because you have to have special training to be a surgeon, and she does. However, she didn't go through the medical system, so it's called being a medical intuitive, right? Yeah, but really, she's a psychic surgeon. Don't tell anybody. She, her psychic abilities were blown wide open, her empathic abilities. I'm just trying to look. I have a huge list here. I can just choose a few of them off of here. She goes on these trips to Saturn. She talks with the Pleiadians. She's, all these out-of-body experiences. She's ridden on a dragon, which one day soon you are going to share about on the show, because that is pretty fascinating in and of itself. So to say that our awakenings have been different is a huge understatement. And yet, for whatever reason, we totally click. We're connected in this lifetime. And we really strongly feel that we would like to share this information with you in a way that we hope is relaxed and fun and easygoing. Anything you'd like to add, Angie?
And for those in the awakening process, which can be very disorienting, very shocking, we want you to know you're not alone, and things are going to calm down. They will settle down. There'll just be a new normal. There's a new normal on the other side, and it's better. It's definitely a 2.0 version of who you were. So You know, when we do upgrades, things are a little awkward for a while, but then it settles down into something that's extraordinary.
Absolutely. And you know, that makes me think too that for those of you that are going the slower route, you know how I think it's a Star Trek movie where the Borg are involved and they say resistance is futile. Well, that's a really great thing to learn because even if you're awakening slowly, you have to know that the more you resist, the more disruption and challenges you'll have in your life, and the harder it will feel. And it doesn't have to be hard. It's going to be challenging, but it doesn't have to be miserable.
Yeah. And it is our resistance that causes all the problems.
It does.
I had a very intelligent, very educated mind. And, you know, I was taught this is how the world is, certain things are this way, blah, blah, blah. I knew all the rules of being a human. And it was literally my resistance to the rule set being something completely different that really caused the problems, you know, and my lack of knowledge about those things. And in fact, had nowhere to go to get that knowledge for a while. So it's the resistance. It's the you thinking that you're a somebody that really causes the problem. It's us being tied to our ego, you know. I'm Angie, I'm a redhead, I'm a professional artist, I'm a wife, I'm a this, I'm a that, and all these little labels that we have.
Yes.
We're so much more. And when we discover that so much more, it makes everything else kind of irrelevant. And that's what causes a shock to the system.
Absolutely. Yes.
When we don't define ourselves so tightly, right? When our ego isn't tied to these labels of ourselves and, oh, I like these things and I don't like these things. It's a lot better when the box gets blown away, right? If we didn't build a tight box in the first place and we're able to stay kind of loose and open and not form opinions so quickly. And when we do have opinions, wonder where they came from, because most of our opinions were given to us by society and culture and family, and they weren't even ours. We had the opinion before we ever even got to try it out and experiment with it. It was just there, and that's how we thought about things, you know?
Yeah.
So,
and we believe it to be as true as gravity.
Absolutely.
You know, it's like, oh yeah, no, this is fact. Because, you know, I've been raised my whole life to believe it. It has to be fact.
Yeah.
So, you know, while you were talking, it made me think about one of the things that I learned, and I can't even tell you, I can't even credit it to somebody right now, even though I know somebody taught this to me, but they suggested that I start to pay attention and call in this thing called my higher self, right? And just start to notice a difference between higher self and ego. And it really wasn't a lot more instruction than that, but it was enough for me to start thinking about this higher self and to start separating that, you know, when I got really angry or frustrated with something, I would go, okay, that's ego, right? That's the human side of me feeling this. And then when I felt like my heart was going to burst with happiness and love, like for example with my dog, often it was my puppy dog that would bring that out in me, I would recognize that, oh, that's higher self. And the more I started doing this, the more I started to notice the difference between when I was in ego and when I was in higher self. And I mean, that was probably 30 years ago. And now I'm able to consciously call my higher self in. And I think I live in my higher self probably 95% of the time. But you know what? I learned something very interesting, which I will share, and then I'm going to give the floor to you for a little bit. I lost a really dear friend several years ago. She actually was very depressed, and she ended up accidentally taking too many pills, or at least that's what we think happened. And she passed away, and I felt myself getting very angry at the other people that I felt had turned their back on her, that weren't able to support her. And every time I did, I realized, oh, I'm an ego. So I would ask my ego, I tell my ego to sit. I got that from Sonia Choquette. But anyway, I tell my ego to sit like a puppy dog, a faithful companion, and I'd call in my higher self. And I'd instantly feel better. and life would go on. Well, this kept happening. And as it was I guess 3 days later or 2 days later, it was the day of the funeral, I was in the shower and I was thinking about what was going to be going on at the funeral. And I had this sudden, so anger just flooded through me. And I thought, oh, you people, all you people who mistreated her are now like acting like, oh, this is the worst thing in the world. And I right away went, oh my gosh, that is so ego. Higher self, please come in. And my higher self said to me, only the ego grieves. In order for you to grieve, you must be in ego. And that was when I started to realize that I couldn't always just tell my ego to sit, although that was a very helpful tool, that now it was time to start integrating my ego and my higher self so that we are living this experience together. And yeah, it was just,
And that has to happen. You know, I live in Boulder, Colorado, and there's a lot of spiritual theology here. And, you know, there's a lot of people who want to escape their ego. And I'm very fortunate. I'm one of the few people on the planet who actually got to, almost for a year. So let me tell you what it's like to not have an ego.
Okay, please do.
The ego is the one that needs to have opinions. It needs to make decisions. I'd wake up in the morning and I couldn't decide what to wear because there was no part of me that could inform preference of one thing over another. So I could basically not get dressed. It was very difficult to eat because there was no part of me that could make a decision on what to eat. Many of the things that the ego holds the information on, and I don't know if you've heard this story or not. This is during my 40 days and nights in the desert part of my awakening, when I would go through these stretches with no ego. I was just in divine bliss, right? And there's this light blinking on my dashboard. And I pull off the road and I study the light and I think about what the light might mean. And I finally realize I need gasoline. So I find a gas station. And a little part of me is thrilled that I know what a gas station is. I pull up at the pump like other people have done, and I get out, and I'm not sure now what is going to happen. And then I finally remember something about a little piece of plastic. So I get in my purse and I pull out a little piece of plastic, credit card, right? And I'm very proud that I'm actually being able to function in this moment as a human being, because I'm not having a lot of these spells where I'm a functional human being, because a lot of information is missing in my brain because I'm blissed out. I'm a bliss bunny.
Right.
And so I have the gas pump in one hand and the credit card in the other hand. And I can't figure, I know the pump goes in this hole in my vehicle, but I can't figure out how this piece of plastic makes fluid come out of this.
Right.
And I must have been 3 or 4 minutes just mystified. And at that time period, I couldn't really read numbers. Numbers looked like Egyptian hieroglyphics to me. There was nothing in my brain and super high states of consciousness that recognized numbers. It was a foreign language. And so what I was seeing on the gas tank, on the gas pump made no sense to me.
Right.
I finally had to go peek around the pump and see what somebody else was doing. And when I did it, I got the download of the information of how the whole gas pump, credit card, everything worked. I've been pumping gas for 30 years.
Yeah.
So,
wow.
So not, and so this joke started coming between me and my higher self, and higher self would be saying, blah, 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 blah. I'd be like, somebody has to drive the car.
Exactly.
Somebody has to pay the taxes, right? We need ego. And so, as a psychic surgeon, I don't need ego. And so what you were saying was sit. I actually do that. And kind of like I tell my ego to go kind of sit in the other room.
Right.
And there's this larger thing that informs me. And it's the thing that can look into the human body like an x-ray machine. It's the one that can see a leaking aorta and do the patch on it, right? It's the one that can see a bone spur and mend it. It's the ego holds a little bit, it holds the idea of how to build a construct to
Right.
fix a thing. So there is this collaboration that happens, but a lot of it comes from the higher self. And so, you know, my experience is not to get rid of the ego, kill the ego. It is not that.
No, me neither.
It's the guidance system, earth guidance only, ego, guidance
Nice,
system.
nice. Earth guidance only. I like that.
Yeah. It's the guidance system for being here. And it's the one that knows when the light goes out that there's a thing called a light bulb and you need to change it. Because higher self doesn't care anything about that stuff at all. So we
Right.
need our ego to be here. And so a spiritual awakening and mastery is to be dimensionally appropriate, right? Do I need to be in a higher state of consciousness for this? Am I taking a group of people on an out-of-body trip to, you know, trace the origins of some mythology?
Mm-hmm.
Or do I need to call my tax person and talk to them right now, right? What, being dimensionally appropriate, very important.
You know, that is such a perfect parallel to so much of our lives, really. Because even when you think about it, with the divine masculine and the divine feminine, there's times where you need to call on your divine masculine in order to do some of the things that require that structure and that the results, that results oriented kind of thing to produce, to provide, to do that. And then there's other times where the feminine is definitely going to be the energy that you need to call upon more. And so I think it is so important with the ego and the higher self, with the divine feminine, divine masculine, that we figure out how do we be balanced and recognize that it is like a teeter-totter more than actually finding balance. It's going to be changing all the time. And that's what makes life so amazing. So
Right.
it isn't about doing one or the other. It's about bringing them together. So I love that.
I always deeply admired the Japanese culture because they were so adaptable, right? World War II, we bombed Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And when we did that, we destroyed their culture and their god. Their emperor was their god, right? So we completely ended a culture's entire way of being and their religion with it. But they didn't fall into alcoholism and obesity and diabetes and a lot of things that we see other cultures do when their culture gets destroyed. Instead, they said, your way is superior. Teach us. And there's something about that, about being adaptable and about being versatile. And in the evolution of consciousness, as we evolve, there's less blacks and whites, and there's a lot more gray, right? We're not judging as much because we're naturally aligned to love. So we're not having to make that decision constantly of, is this the right thing to do or not? Because we're embodied with our higher self. We already know where the path of love is, right? But that's a broad path. And we have all these options within that pathway.
That is very thought-provoking. It's not thought-provoking as much as I like to use the word contemplate now. I have learned contemplation is a bit different than thinking about things.
It's a form of curiosity, and one of the greatest gifts we can give to ourselves is being curious. When we quit knowing, and trust me, we don't know everything. We don't even know a micron of what's out there in the universe. It's phenomenal what we don't know. And when we luxuriate in our not knowing, but stay curious, the universe starts sharing its secrets with us.
That's called wisdom, right? Luxuriating in the not knowing. Love it. A little gem for us there. So I feel like this might be a good time to switch gears and start into a practice or something today. So what would you like to do for today?
Yeah, I think the evolution of consciousness is about evolving our frequency. And that's the rate of vibration. And the higher the rate of our vibration is, for example, love is specifically 528 hertz.
Mm-hmm.
Cancer is about 48 hertz. You can kind of see immediately how being in a high state of consciousness is helping.
Mm-hmm.
So how about we talk about frequency and ways to raise our frequency?
Okay, so this is the practical piece?
Sure.
Okay, sounds good.
So one of the most effective ways is being aware of your thoughts. You are not your thoughts, although the ego wants you to think that you are the thinker of your thoughts, but you can actually observe your thoughts. And they're like fish going by, and they kind of don't stop for a lot of people. They just keep going and going and going. And when you notice thoughts that don't feel good, right? It's kind of like, ooh, like that thought I just had. Just change your thought to a happy thought. You can control so much of your reality if you'll control your thoughts. Very important for people with depression, right?
Mm-hmm.
Being aware of your thoughts leads you to choice points. You can choose. Does this thought feel good? And so part of what we can do is assist our ego to get back on track, move towards the happy thought, right? Following our joy is knowing when we're off the path of happiness or off the point of joy. And being emotional, which is a uniquely human thing. Not all species in the universe are emotional like we are. We might even come here, just experience it because it's a gauge, a meter, right,
Mm-hmm.
for experiencing reality. So by feeling within ourselves, we can feel how a thought feels and change our thoughts, right? And we can do that through music, dance, read a book. We just distract ourselves. It's a lot, dealing with the ego is a lot like dealing with a 2 or 3-year-old child. Just point it to a shiny object. And it will follow that just as easily. It's remarkable.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so we just by being aware of our thoughts, we can change them to a higher frequency. And we all know plenty of things to feel good about, right? And if we don't, we need to start figuring them out.
Mm. I often like to tell people to just search for one feeling better, right? So if you're feeling really frustrated with something, then, you know, taking that moment, I mean, just even breathing and feeling the bottom of your feet on the floor can be enough to shift from allowing that feeling to determine your next action, right? And to shift you instead into the person who's in control. And so what would be one feeling better than frustration? And believe it or not, frustration is something that is different, right? Depending on where you're at. So it might be relief. Maybe you're frustrated from pain and relief might be your next better feeling. But just sort of going with that one feeling more. Because I think it is so important that we recognize feelings are kind of like the smoke detector in your home. And when that feeling goes off, it's not telling you that for sure there's a fire. Mine went off tonight when I was making supper, when I opened my oven. It's not telling you that there is for sure a fire in your house. It is telling you, hey, something's going on and it's worth it to check into it. And so that's what we do. But when we allow that, you know, the fact that we feel really frustrated or angry or whatever it is that we're feeling, that the ego has grabbed onto and then is even searching for thoughts that match that feeling, why you feel this way, then we are actually allowing the smoke detector to tell us, you know, yes, it's a fire. Yes, you better get out, start breaking those windows, you know, do whatever you need to do to get out of there. So yeah, I think that is a very key piece to our vibrational
I
frequency.
actually have a list here that I share with my students.
Mm-hmm.
to help them understand kind of the vibrational ranking of thoughts, or not thoughts, but emotions. But we know the thoughts that are accompanying these emotions. So I'll read them from the bottom of it to the top. So these are the steps that Debbie is saying. Look for the higher frequency thought, right? So the very bottom is shame. Next up is guilt. Guilt is preoccupation with sin, unforgiving, uses religious dogma for control, obsessed with punishment. Next up from guilt is apathy. Apathy is abandonment of hope. No courage to look at reality. Next up from apathy is grief. Next up from grief is fear. This is where most of the world is at. Life equals hazardous traps and threats. Manipulators, government, and advertising play most heavily here. They're fearful, and they want strong leaders who appear to have conquered their own fears. Next up from fear is desire. Desire for money, prestige, power, etc. Addiction and need for sexual approval is the strongest here. Accumulation of goods, greed, and desire is insatiable because it's the driving force. But it's higher than apathy and grief because those experiencing desire are seeking a better life. Therefore, it's a springboard to higher levels of consciousness.
Nice.
Next up from desire is anger, both constructive and destructive. Next up from that is pride. This is a rise in self-esteem. It's a balm in contrast to the lower levels. Most people in the world live right here in this range. If you can rise out of this range, you rise into courage. This is where power first appears. It's a critical line that distinguishes positive and negative influences. First attainment of true power. Therefore, this is the level of personal empowerment, exploration, accomplishment, fortitude, and determination. Below here, the worldview is hopeless, sad, frightening, and frustrating. Here, life is exciting, challenging, and stimulating. Willingness to try new things. Here, people put back into the world as much energy as they take. Below here, people and populations drain energy. So this is where true productivity begins, is at courage. So next up, and you're going to hear Debbie and I talk about this a lot because this is a major secret to life. Just above courage is neutrality. Yeah. Above neutrality is willingness. Above willingness is acceptance. Above acceptance is reason. This is where emotionalism has been transcended. Above reason is love. Above love is joy. Above joy is peace. Above peace is enlightenment, which is peace is 1 in 10 million people. Enlightenment's even rarer than that.
Yes, yes.
So that gives you an idea. There's a lot of states of being, and what we want to strive for is to control our thoughts and emotions, our reactions to the world. We want to reduce our reactions so that we're working towards neutrality and ultimately peace, which is a real abiding state, actually. Peace is remarkable.
Absolutely. And when you spend time in that love zone, I've been spending a lot of time there, your heart is just so open. The world, just everything just looks and feels so beautiful, and people are so wonderful because they feel your energy as well. And
so it's like being a child again, that incredible innocence and openness and purity we had as a child. That's within us, and it's still obtainable.
Absolutely. So we would like to invite you to send us your thoughts, your comments, your questions. Please go to crystalarrays.com and check out all that Angie, I'll say your name right. I wanted to call her Angel in that moment, but Angela wanted to come out. You know how that goes. Anyway, check out all that Angel has to offer. You can sign up there for a complimentary crystal array, and that will get you on Angie's list, and then you will know, you'll get notices of different things, even different events that we're doing here. And we would like to invite you as well, if you're interested in coming on the show with us and maybe having being a, can I call them a guinea pig? Not really, because you're so well trained, but actually being a subject for one of Angie's healings or readings or those kinds of things. We're looking for people to do that kind of stuff too. So send us your questions, send us your thoughts, send us your feedback, and please share this video. Help us spread the love. Tell us what you'd like, because that will affect even the longevity of this show. And thank you so very much for listening in.
Blessings, everyone. Bye, Debbie.
Bye.